Probability questions can feel like an absolute minefield. 1 minute you're just flipping a coin, and the next minute the question throws a word like or, given that, independent at you, and suddenly the maths completely changes. The secret to acing these questions isn't memorizing a list of formula, it's learning how to decode the language so you know exactly what the question is really asking you to do. In this video, we're going to look at a series of exam-style probability questions, and I'll show you the exact step-by-step methods to solving them. In the first of these, we're told that a standard pack of playing cards is shuffled and one card is drawn at random. That event J equal the card is a jack, and event H equals the card is a heart. Part A asks us to find the probability of the intersection between J and H. Part B asks us to find the probability of the union between J and H. And Part C asks us to state with reason whether J and H are mutually exclusive. And finally, Part D asks us to state with reason whether J and H are independent. If you'd like to play along, pause the video now. To help us solve this question, I've created a two-circle Venn diagram. The first represents event J, where the card is a jack, and the second represents event H, where the card is a heart. So let's start filling in the numbers here. So in a pack of 52 cards, there is only one jack of hearts. So I've placed the number 1 in the intersection between the card being a jack and the card being a heart. And in total, we have 4 jacks in a standard 52 pack of cards. Now we know one of the jacks is a heart, and we know that 3 are not hearts. So we place the number 3 in the part of the Venn diagram that represents jacks but not hearts. So the sum total of jacks is 3 plus 1, and that equals 4. We also know that there are 13 hearts in a pack of 52 cards, and we know that 1 is a jack of hearts, which we've accounted for. So I've placed the number 12 in this region of the Venn diagram, and it represents those cards that are hearts but not the jack of hearts. And finally, we know that there are 52 cards in the pack, so those cards that are not jacks or hearts is equal to 52 minus 3 minus 1 minus 12, and this equals 36. And this number we place outside of the two circles, but within the rectangle. And part A of the question asks us to find the probability of the intersection between jacks and hearts. And we find this probability by taking the number 1 that appears in the intersection between J and H and dividing it by the total sample space. So we have the probability of the intersection between J and H is equal to 1 divided by 52, which is the total number of cards in the pack. And for part B, we're asked to find the probability of the union between J and H. Now we can use the addition rule to find this probability. And the addition rule tells us that the probability of the union between J and H is equal to the probability of J plus the probability of H minus the probability of the intersection of J and H. So let's calculate the individual probabilities. So the probability of a card being a jack, given that there's 4 jacks in a 52 card pack, is 4 divided by 52. And the probability that a card is a heart, when there are 13 hearts in a 52 card pack, is 13 over 52. And we know the probability of the intersection between J and H, as we've already calculated it, and it's 1 divided by 52. And plugging these probabilities into our equation, we have 4 divided by 52 plus 13 divided by 52 minus 1 divided by 52. And this equals 16 divided by 52, or 4/13. And this is the probability of J union H. Now part C of the question asks us to state with reason whether J and H are mutually exclusive. Now for them to be mutually exclusive, it means that they cannot happen at the same time. So if they were mutually exclusive, the probability of the intersection between J and H would equal 0. And we've calculated the probability of the intersection between J and H, and we found that it was 1 divided by 52. And this is not equal to 0, and therefore the events J and H are not mutually exclusive. And for part D of the question, we're asked to state with reason whether J and H are independent. So if they are independent, it means that the outcome of one does not have any impact on the outcome of the other. And we know that the probability of J and H is equal to the probability of the intersection between J and H, which is equal to the probability of J multiplied by the probability of H. Now we've already calculated the probability of the intersection between J and H, and we found that it was equal to 1 divided by 52. And we also know that the individual probabilities, so the probability of J is 4 divided by 52, and the probability of H is 13 divided by 52. And when we multiply the individual probabilities together, we get a value of 1 divided by 52, which is the same as the probability, the intersection of J and H. This means, therefore, that the events J and H are independent. In our second question, we're told that we have a box that contains 4 working batteries and 2 faulty batteries. 3 batteries are selected at random, one at a time, without replacement. In part A of the question, we're asked to draw a tree diagram representing this information. In part B, we're asked to find the probability that all 3 batteries selected are working. And in part C, we're asked to find the probability that exactly one of the 3 selected batteries is faulty. If you'd like to play along, pause the video now. And so for part A, we're asked to draw a tree diagram representing the information. So we have a box containing 6 batteries, and we know that 4 are working and 2 are faulty. So when we make our first selection from the box, there's 4 chances in 6 that the battery we select is working. And as such, there's 2 chances in 6 that the battery we select is faulty. Now for our next selection, the question says that we make our selections one at a time without replacement. So when we make our second selection, there are only 5 batteries in the box. And if our first selection was a working battery, there are now only 3 working batteries in the box. So in our second selection, there'll be a 3 in 5 chance of it being working. And as there are still 2 faulty batteries in the box, there'll be a 2 in 5 chance of our second selection being faulty. And if our first selection was a faulty battery, there'll still be 4 working batteries in the box. So the chances of selecting a working battery in our second selection will be 4 chances in 5. And the chances of selecting a faulty one will be 1 chance in 5. And then on to our third selection, there are now only 4 batteries left in the box. If our first 2 selections were working batteries, there'll still be 2 working batteries left in the box. So the chances of selecting a working battery will be 2 in 4. And similarly, there'll still be 2 faulty batteries in the box. So there'll be a 2 in 4 chance of selecting a faulty battery. If our first selection was a working battery and our second selection was a faulty battery, that would mean that there are still 3 working batteries in the box out of a total of 4. That means the chances of our third battery being a working battery is 3 chances in 4, and 1 chance in 4 of it being faulty. If our first selection was a faulty battery and our second selection was a working battery, then there'd still be 3 working batteries left in the box out of a total of 4. So the chances of our third selection being a working battery would be 3 chances in 4, and the chances of it being faulty would be 1 in 4. And if our first 2 selections were faulty batteries, that would mean that there are no faulty batteries left in the box. So we're guaranteed to select a working battery in this case. There'd be 4 chances out of a total of 4, and therefore the probability of selecting a faulty battery would be 0, because there aren't any faulty batteries left in the box. In part B of the question, we're asked to find the probability that all 3 selected batteries are working. So if we look at our tree diagram, this would mean that the first battery selected would be working, the second battery that we selected would be working, and the third battery we selected would be working. And so if we pick the probabilities of the branches I've marked, the probability of this happening would be 4/6 multiplied by 3/5 multiplied by 2/4. And this would equal 24 divided by 120, which simplifies to 1/5. So the probability that all three selected batteries are working is 1/5. In part C of the question, we're asked to find the probability that exactly one of the three selected batteries is faulty. Let's take a look at our tree diagram and look at the possibilities. So if the first battery selected is a working battery, and the second battery selected is a working battery, then the third battery must be faulty for this situation to exist. So we can multiply these probabilities together. So we have 4/6 multiplied by 3/5 multiplied by 2/4, and this equals 1/5. In another scenario, the first battery selected can be working, the second battery selected can be faulty, and then the third battery selected must be working for this situation to arise. So if we multiply these probabilities, we have 4/6 multiplied by 2/5 multiplied by 3/4, and this once again equals 1/5. And if the first battery selected is faulty, then the next two selections must be working batteries for this situation to arrive. So this path followed by this path. And multiplying these probabilities together, we have 2/6 multiplied by 4/5 multiplied by 3/4, and this again equals 1/5. So as we can choose any of these three paths to select one faulty battery, so either path 1 or path 2 or path 3, we need to sum the three probabilities. So we have 1/5 plus 1/5 plus 1/5, and this equals 3/5. So the probability that exactly one of the three batteries selected is faulty is equal to 3/5. In our third question, we're told that for events A and B, the probability of A is 0.5, and the probability of B is 0.3, and the probability of A union B is equal to 0.65. Part A of the question asks us to find the probability of A intersection B. Part B asks us to draw a Venn diagram labeling each region with its probability. And Part C asks us to find the probability of A given B. If you'd like to play along, pause the video now. Now for Part A of the question, we want to find the probability of A intersection B. And to do this, we can use the addition rule. So using the addition rule, the probability of A union B is equal to the probability of A plus the probability of B minus the probability of A intersection B. Now we already have the probability of A union B and the probability of A and the probability of B. So we can solve this equation to find the probability of A intersection B. So plugging in the probabilities given in the question, we have the probability of A union B is 0.65, the probability of A is 0.5, and the probability of B is 0.3. And rearranging the equation gives the probability of A intersection B equal to 0.5 plus 0.3 minus 0.65. And this equals 0.15. If you'd like to support the channel, you can now become a member to get early access to every video. To join, you can use the link displayed here, or just hit the join button right below the video. For Part B, we're asked to draw a Venn diagram and label each region with its probabilities. So here I've drawn a Venn diagram with two circles, one representing A and one representing B. And the probability of A intersection B, this green shaded region, we calculated in Part A of the question, and this is equal to 0.15. The green shaded region on the board shows the probability of A only. So that's exclusively A, and it's the probability of A minus the intersection of A and B. So that's 0.5, which is the probability of A, minus 0.15, which is the probability of A intersection B. And this gives us a probability of 0.35. And the probability of B only is this green shaded region. So the probability of B only is equal to 0.3, which is the probability of B, minus 0.15, which is the probability of A intersection B. And this gives us a total probability of 0.15. Everything outside of the circles represents the probability of not A union B. And to get this, we can subtract A intersection B, A only, and B only from 1. And this gives us a probability of 0.35. And for part C of this question, we want to find the probability of A given B. So this is a conditional probability question. And the way we find this is we take the probability of A intersection B and divide it by the probability of B. Now we calculated the probability of A intersection B in part A of the question, and we saw that that was equal to 0.15. And we're given the probability of B, which is 0.3. So the probability of A given B is 0.5. And you'll note that this probability is the same as the probability of A. So this means that the events A and B are independent events, as the probability of A given B is equal to the probability of A.